Tomb Raider and Uncharted, the two big action-adventure exploration franchises of modern gaming. And I've always loved Tomb Raider, but I've actually never played an Uncharted game because I never had a PlayStation. That is, until now, when I excitedly booted up my PlayStation 5 so I could give my opinion on the age-old debate, Uncharted versus Tomb Raider. And spoiler alert, they are both very good. So, where do we start? Well, Tomb Raider, led by Lara Croft, Lara Croft, debuted in 1996, heavily inspired by Indiana Jones. The game was super popular and spawned a ton of sequels and then an eventual reboot trilogy, which is what we're going to be talking about today. Uncharted, led by Nathan Drake, debuted in 2007, heavily inspired by Gears of War of all things. And for these, we'll be talking about the 4 main Uncharted games, not these ones. Both games have very similar gameplay with some key differences that I wasn't expecting. Both are third-person, cover-based combat shooters with platforming, climbing, exploration, all of that good stuff. But since Uncharted was originally inspired by Gears of War, it is much more action-heavy and linear. Not to say Tomb Raider isn't as well, but I'll go into more of that later. Early Uncharted games, specifically the first, had quite a repetitive gameplay loop of shooting gallery after shooting gallery, and I just generally wasn't vibing with the first Uncharted game. But oh my god, the series immediately improved after this game, with the second game being... whoo! This game is so good. I was not expecting this game to be so good after playing the first game. The newer Uncharted games were still linear, but instead of being bored, I found myself really entertained by whatever the games would throw at me. Sure, I mean, it's kind of dumb and there were some eye-rolling moments, but playing an Uncharted game is pretty much like playing a giant action blockbuster movie. The combat is great, but the gameplay never really evolves other than throwing a few small things at the player like the grappling hook in the fourth game. Tomb Raider is definitely still linear, but in my opinion gives the player a few more interesting gameplay mechanics. So first off, straight up, the combat is not as good as Uncharted. It feels not as satisfying, it never feels as weighted as it could, but Tomb Raider's areas are a lot more open-ended than Uncharted, with a lot more room to explore, find puzzles, tombs, and I'll talk more on that later. But basically, here's my idea of an early Uncharted map, and here's my idea of an early Tomb Raider map. As you can see, they both lead the same way, because they're both linear games, just Uncharted is a lot more straight to the point, and Tomb Raider gives the player a lot more room to explore. In Tomb Raider, you can return to areas and find more salvage and complete puzzles. You can craft gear and weapons on the fly, which I really enjoyed. There's a skill tree, which is definitely cliche, but I still enjoyed having it there. And overall, there's just a much more fleshed out stealth system that gets better and better with each game. A lot of Uncharted's gameplay problems were solved for me in the fourth game. As I said earlier, Naughty Dog gives the player a grappling hook, which is the greatest thing ever invented by anyone. The grappling hook looks and feels so good in the larger levels of this game, and you can use it in combat, and it's just so satisfying. Anyways, Uncharted's shooting, which already felt better than Tomb Raider's, feels even better and more precise in the fourth game. But shooting is not the only form of gameplay here, as with exploration and platforming, they're both good, but I found Tomb Raider's to be less mindless than Uncharted's, if that makes sense. Lara is definitely a bit more fluid and fun to control than Drake, in my opinion. But with puzzles, crypts, tombs, and all of that, I definitely found Tomb Raider to have the clear edge. Uncharted's puzzles I found to be just bad at some points. They all boil down to opening the notebook, and most of them are pretty tedious and time-consuming. There are a few good puzzles here and there, but those are pretty rare. Tomb Raider's puzzles aren't monumental or anything, but I found them a lot more engaging and a lot more challenging than Uncharted's. I found both games to have fun, well done gameplay that borderlines on repetitive by the end. Uncharted is a more straight-to-the-point action-adventure game. However, Uncharted has some amazing, unforgettable, and just downright spectacular action set-piece moments that I will never forget. And Tomb Raider is a more nuanced, but not quite as fleshed out as it can be, action-adventure survival game. But in the end, I prefer Tomb Raider's gameplay slightly, just because of the exploration and puzzle aspect of it. Both stories have issues and are not the best, but they're passable. I do like Tomb Raider's focus and development of Lara a lot, and the games heavily focus on her and don't really develop any side characters other than Jonah. But I do enjoy the different things each game offers, like some survival horror segments even. Uncharted instead doesn't really focus on Nathan Drake's development or anything, but instead on the story's side characters. Speaking of which, I love the side characters in Uncharted, and the side characters in Tomb Raider don't even hold a candle to these. Because of Tomb Raider's more personal story, it had some moments I love, like Lara's first kill in 2013's Tomb Raider, and then she's all sad, but by the end of the game she does this, which is then paralleled in the last game with this. But I have to give the edge to Uncharted here because Naughty Dog's dialogue writing and side characters are much more fleshed out than Tomb Raider's, and overall just more memorable in my opinion. This is tough because both franchises are very pretty and sound good. Other than noticing that Uncharted 1 just aged and generally played pretty poorly, I found 2 and 3 aged quite well. And Uncharted 4 is just insane. This game looks, feels, and sounds better than 99% of the games coming out today. But all of the Tomb Raider games are beautiful, and I found all of them, even the 2013 game, aged like fine wine. Like I said, both franchises sound great and have tremendous voice acting, featuring some of the best performances we are ever going to get from Nolan North and Camila Luddington. I'd have to give the graphical edge here to Tomb Raider, as in my opinion the environments are a bit more detailed and especially varied, but I would give the audio edge to Uncharted, as both games sound great, but Uncharted's score is definitely better and more memorable. And that's it. The winner is... well, actually, the real winner would be you, the player, if you play both of these franchises. The games are very similar, but in the end, I found both franchises scratched different itches and are very good. I found I preferred the gameplay slightly with Tomb Raider and the story slightly with Uncharted, so take that however you will. If you haven't played a certain franchise, if you've just replayed a certain franchise, let me know. I'm excited to hear what you have to say. This video is brought to you by my game, Midnight Acres. You can wishlist it on Steam right now. It's a relaxing farming sim merged with an intense FPS. It's really good, I promise. Check it out, wishlist it, it really helps. But that's it. If you like this video, I'll be coming out with more similar to it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.